Welcome back. So this is the first semester BSc Zoology core course paper. We have been discussing on classification and nomenclature. So we'll be continuing with the classification here, a deeper study of classification. Uh, what are the different criteria upon which the biological classification is made? The major criteria for biological classification says it should always be based on phylogeny. So what is phylogeny? Phylogeny, it is actually uh, the different sequence of events that had resulted in the formation of a species. So obviously, a species always originates from another species. I hope you're getting. For example, um, fishes were existing on the earth, even now it is existing. Some of the groups of fishes in the early past, ancient past, it it developed certain characters with which it could come out of water, survive on the land. Okay, and those species, it evolved certain characters to equip its terrestrial mode of life, and those ones later developed into the amphibians. Okay, but the amphibians were not completely terrestrial, they were not successful in their terrestrial life. So what happened is they had to visit water, or they needed at least a small amount of water during their breeding time. Okay, so that is how the amphibians evolved. Similarly, uh, the amphibians, some of the amphibians, what happened is some of the species of amphibians, they developed characters to successfully adapt to the terrestrial mode of life. So what was that particular trait that helped in successful establishment of a terrestrial mode of life? The most important one is obviously getting a shelled egg. Okay, because if the eggs are not shelled, if the eggs are not provided with a shell, what happens is when the eggs are laid on the barren terrestrial land, what happens? It gets evaporated, and the embryo inside may get completely dried off and get killed, isn't it? So to avoid such a condition, such a situation, obviously a completely terrestrial, a successfully terrestrial organism need to have a shelled egg. Okay, so that was a major what you call development, or during the course of evolution. So some of the amphibians, they started to develop develop shelled eggs. Okay, and those ones later slowly developed into the reptiles. Okay, and these, some of the reptiles, they developed wings and they gave rise to birds. At the same time, some other reptiles, they gave rise to mammals. That is how the evolution has been studied. Okay, details are much broader, but simplified version is like this. Okay, now classification should always be based on phylogeny. Here what happens is, so this is a phylogenetic representation. Okay, so this is actually a group of mammals, right, coming under the order Carnivora. And this Carnivora, from the ancestral stock, what happened is, initially some of the groups of these ancient carnivore, they developed into ancestors that later gave rise to the Panthera. Fine, I hope it is clear. Okay, the cats and the Panthera, that is what you call the leopard, lion, tiger, etc. Okay, at the same time, they also gave rise to another ancestor. Okay, this ancestor evolved into two groups. One group which gave rise to the dogs, wolves, foxes, etc. Another group which later gave rise to the otters, Nirnaya എന്ന് പറയും. Okay, so otters and the striped skunk. So you can see here the branching. Okay, this branching means there was an ancestor, some of which gave rise to the Felidae group, some of this gave rise to another ancestral stock. Okay, that is what the meaning is. Here, this ancestral stock, it is different from the ancestor over here. Okay, similarly, this ancestor is different from the ancestor over here. Okay, and this ancestor, it gave rise to two groups, the Canidae and the Mustelidae. Okay, Canidae had its own characters which made it different from the Mustelidae. Obviously, the Mustelidae, further the another group of organisms arose from the ancestor over here during the course of evolution. And this ancestor further gave rise to two groups. Okay, they were the genus Lutra and Mephitis. So this is how the whole thing goes on. I hope it is clear. Okay, so when we speak about all these animals, they all had an ancient common ancestor. Okay, but they are different. Why? Because during the course of evolution, they had diverted quite a bit from the ancient ancestor over here. Okay, this may have taken, the whole process may have taken uh, like millions of years. Okay, it was not a sudden change, it was not a change that happened in a single year or a couple of years, but it is millions of years that had gone by, during which this particular ancestor had given rise to the present day wolf, or this ancestor have given rise to the leopard. And don't think that the same amount of years had been taken to develop the wolf and the leopard from the same ancestor. Okay, it may be different. I hope it is clear. Okay, so when we are speaking about this, obviously these two, skunk and the otter, they are more related as compared with the leopard, obviously. Okay, skunk and otter are more closely related against the leopard. So these have to be put in the same family. This must be taken out of that particular family, must be clear. Similarly here, these two are more closely related. Wolf and the dog is more closely related than the dog related to otter. Okay, so the dog and otter doesn't come in the same family. Instead, dog and the wolf, because it has much common similarities, they are grouped under the same category or same family. Okay, and since they have arisen from the same ancestor, it is belonging to the same taxon. I hope it is clear. So phylogeny has to be taken into account while classifying organisms. And above all, when you were learning the classification in the initial years, maybe in the 11th standard or even earlier, you may have learned it in a specific order. First invertebrates and then vertebrates. When you spoke about vertebrates, you studied fishes first, for example, right? And then amphibia, then reptiles, and then birds and mammals, right? So there was always a sequential order which was maintained while studying the classification, because it reflects the phylogeny, it reflects the evolution. So studying phylogeny and the using this the phylogenetic studies for classification is a must. Okay, then only it becomes scientific. Okay, the next one is actually when you are studying phylogenetic the phylogeny of various groups, it must be including homologies. Okay, what is homology? Okay, the word is homologous, homology, gy. Okay, so what is homologous? Here you can see, these are a few examples. Okay, here you can see the bat, uh, flying one, the swimming dolphins, that is aquatic dolphins. All these are terrestrial, obviously, but the forelimbs it is used, or forelimbs or hind limbs. Here we are speaking about the forelimbs. Forelimbs are used in various ways. Here it is used for grasping, isn't it? For gripping onto branches and all. uh, Pigs, they use it for walking, horse for walking and running, moles for digging, making burrows and all. Okay, anteaters for tearing, they have very large claws. Okay, and they use it for tearing off what you call termite hills or mud, etc. Okay, so you can see here, when you study the limbs, forelimbs especially, of all these animals, you can see the forelimbs have a basic pattern. So what is the basic pattern? That is, the limbs have at the upper part, okay, joining the shoulder, we can see a single bone. Okay, in the case of forelimb, it is known as a humerus. Fine, and further downward, this is a lower arm, or we call as a forearm. Okay, it is supported by two bones. In the case of forelimb, it is radio-ulna, radius and ulna. These are the two bones. Okay, this is the wrist region in the case of forelimbs, and that is supported by a couple of smaller bones, which we commonly call as carpals. And the palm region or the hand region, it is supported by metacarpals. Okay, again, a few bones are there. Further distally, we have the fingers, isn't it? The fingers are supported by bones which are known as phalanges. So this particular pattern is found in the wings of bat, the flippers of dolphin, and the forelimbs of all these animals. Even though they all have, they all use the forelimbs for different purposes and functions, they all have the same basic pattern. What does it indicate? They all have evolved from a common ancestor which had the same kind of forelimb or the pattern of the forelimb, the bone arrangement of the forelimb. I hope it is clear. Okay, so this is what is referred as a homology. That is, even though functioning, the actually homology refer to having structures, body parts with the similar pattern, with the same origin, but externally if we see, it will be different because of the adaptation for the specific functions they are used for. Okay, but internally if we see, it will be having the same pattern. When we study the origin from where it has been formed from the embryonic stage, obviously it will be the same. Okay, so here you can see all having the same basic pattern. So this indicate all these animals have evolved from a common ancestor. This ancestor had the same kind of bone pattern in their forelimbs. Clear? Now what about these? Is a dolphin? All these are aquatic, or penguin. Obviously, it is not completely aquatic, but they spend more time in water for feeding and all. Okay, so this is a mammal, this is a bird, and this is a fish coming from different groups of organisms. But all these have similar kind of the forelimb. You can see here flipper. Then birds, again the wings almost is suited for swimming in water, isn't it? And the whales, they have the sharks, they have the fins. When we study the limb structure or the what you call bone structure, the pattern of arrangement of the bones, you can see that it is different. Okay, if we can even add what you call butterflies or any insect, the flying insect, they also have wings. It is also suited uh, for example, butterflies. We can use a bird, a bat. Okay, these three, if we take instead of these three, you can see that they are also the wings are used for flying, but basically the structural pattern, if we compare, it is different. Okay, here also you can see the structural pattern is different. Okay, what does it indicate? These had arose from different ancestors, right? So they don't have any evolutionary close relationship as against these four, which had close relationship because of the pattern of bones in their forelimbs. These three doesn't have any such kind of relationship. Okay, so they are distantly related. So based on that, what we can do, these four can be put into the same taxa. Okay, it needn't be lower taxa, it can be higher taxa, but still it can be put into the same taxa. But what about this one? We cannot put it in the same taxa because structurally, if we see, it is different. Okay, so that is regarding the homology. Now another feature is the plesiomorphic and epomorphic characters. Okay, when we study homologies in phylogenetics, while phylogenetic studies, we can see that characters developed during evolution of the organisms, of the species, okay, not the organisms. Okay, while evolution take place, characters develop, and some of the characters may have developed in the very ancient past, while some of the characters may have developed in the recent past. For example, this is the evolution of vertebrates. Okay, so there was an ancestor over here which had all the vertebrate characters, and these okay, this particular ancestor gave rise to superclass species and an ancestral stock which had four legs. Okay, tetrapod. Okay, four legs. So during the course of evolution, what happened is some of the organisms of this particular ancestor, it gave rise to group of organisms having four legs. Okay, a tetrapod. Okay, this tetrapod, it gave rise to all the rest of the vertebrates, from frog, that is amphibian, till the mammal. All the vertebrates except the fishes, it arose from the tetrapod ancestor. Is clear? So when we speak about the tetrapod, it is actually plesiomorphic, primitive character. Okay, we will be continuing in the next presentation.